The morning air was cold and clean around the old palace yard. The stone path looked smooth from years of footsteps. Visitors stood behind a quiet line and held their phones carefully. Some people spoke in low voices because the place felt serious. A line of royal guards stood straight as tall poles. Their red coats looked bright against the gray stone. Their faces stayed calm like they were trained to ignore the world. One guard named Tom stood near the main gate. He kept his eyes forward and did not blink much. He had practiced this stance so many times that it felt natural now. Tom remembered his first day of training. The instructor had told him that the uniform was not a costume. The instructor had said the uniform carried trust and history. Tom learned to stand still when crowds stared at him. Tom learned to stay quiet when people tried to talk to him. Tom learned that his job was not to react to feelings. His job was to follow the rules of the palace and his officers. That lesson stayed in his mind every time he took his post. On this day, a group of important visitors entered the yard. The group walked with security and staff nearby. Cameras moved with them like shadows. One man in the group was Donald Trump. He walked with a confident step and looked around with interest. People in the crowd leaned forward to see him better. Some visitors whispered his name softly. Others focused on the guards and the palace walls. The yard seemed to hold two kinds of attention at once. Trump stopped near the guard line and looked at Tom. Tom did not move at all. Trump studied the guard's still posture and serious face. He seemed curious about how the guard could stay so steady. A few people nearby waited to see what would happen next. The quiet grew thicker like fog. Trump turned slightly toward Tom and spoke in a firm voice. He told Tom to salute him. The words were clear enough for the people closest to hear. Some visitors looked surprised because the yard had strict customs. Tom kept his eyes forward and remained still. His hands stayed in position like he was part of the stone wall. Inside, his mind stayed calm and focused. He heard the words, but he did not accept them as a command. His training told him that he could only respond to official orders. He also knew that guests could not direct the guard line. The rule was simple even when the moment felt uncomfortable. Tom's duty was not about pride or ego. It was about discipline and structure. That structure protected the palace from confusion. Trump's face tightened for a moment. He repeated the request with more force in his voice. The crowd shifted and some phones rose higher. A woman named Mia pulled her scarf tighter and held her breath. A man named Sam whispered that this might get awkward. A child named Ollie looked at Tom and tried to copy the stiff stance. The yard felt like it was waiting for a single movement. But Tom did not move. The silence felt louder than speech. Another guard named Alex stood a few steps away from Tom. Alex kept his posture perfect, but his awareness sharpened. He watched the crowd without turning his head too much. He knew moments like this could spread quickly through the media. He also knew the best response was calm and clarity. Alex trusted Tom to follow training. He trusted the palace officers to manage guests politely. Still, he could sense the tension growing. It was the kind of tension that came from crossed expectations. An officer named Ben stepped forward from the side path. Ben wore a different uniform that showed his rank. His movement was measured and respectful. He did not rush and he did not show anger. He walked to a spot where he could speak without crowding anyone. He looked at Trump and offered a calm greeting. His voice was steady and polite. He explained that the guards followed formal protocol. He said the guards saluted only during approved ceremonies. He said they followed orders from their command line only. Trump listened with a firm expression. Ben continued in the same calm tone. He said the rules existed to protect the dignity of the institution. He said the rules also protected visitors from misunderstandings. He said the guard was not refusing out of disrespect. He said the guard was doing exactly what the role required. Ben kept his hands relaxed at his sides. He did not point or wave or make the moment dramatic. He acted like this was a normal situation with a clear solution. The crowd settled a little as Ben spoke. Mia nodded slowly, as if the explanation made sense to her. Sam lowered his phone slightly and looked relieved. Ollie looked at Ben and then back at Tom. Ollie seemed impressed by how calm everyone stayed. A few tourists whispered that the palace had strict traditions. Another visitor said the guard line looked like it belonged to history itself. In that moment, attention shifted from the request to the rules. The yard felt less like a stage and more like a lesson. Tom stayed still through all of it. He focused on his breathing and the points of posture he had learned. He felt the cold air touch his cheeks. He felt the weight of his uniform on his shoulders. He felt the same steady focus he used every day. He did not hate anyone and he did not judge anyone. He simply held the line that he was trusted to hold. In his mind, the rule was not personal. It was the order that allowed the palace to function. Trump looked around at the walls and the flags above. The flags moved gently in the winter wind. The palace seemed older than any argument. The stones seemed to carry stories that did not need shouting. Trump's eyes returned to Tom for a brief moment. He seemed to measure the situation with a new awareness. He did not speak for a few seconds. The cameras kept recording, waiting for a reaction. The crowd stayed quiet, listening to the space between words. Ben offered one more sentence in a respectful tone. He suggested continuing the visit and enjoying the scheduled tour. He said there were many official moments designed for photos. He said those moments would be handled with proper ceremony. His words offered a path forward without embarrassment. Alex could sense the tension easing a little more. Tom stayed steady as always. The yard returned to a calmer rhythm, but the moment still lingered. People knew something meaningful had happened without any shouting. They had seen the power of rules that did not bend in public. The silence slowly softened after the officer spoke. The cold wind moved gently across the yard. Trump stood still for a moment and looked around the palace space. He seemed to study the tall walls and old stones. The place did not feel like a room where voices controlled outcomes. It felt like a place shaped by rules older than any visitor. Ben stepped back half a pace to show respect. He kept his body language open and calm. Trump adjusted his coat and took a slow breath. The crowd noticed the shift in his posture. His shoulders relaxed slightly as he looked toward the flags above. The flags moved with quiet strength in the sky. Tom continued standing without movement. His eyes stayed forward and his jaw remained steady. He did not think about the crowd anymore. He focused only on balance and posture. The cold touched his hands but he ignored it. Training had taught him to let discomfort pass without reaction. Alex watched the scene from the corner of his vision. He sensed that the hardest moment had already passed. Experience told him that calm explanation often changed outcomes. He respected Ben for stepping in at the right time. He also respected Tom for holding firm without emotion. Trump looked again at Tom and then at Ben. He nodded once in acknowledgement. He did not raise his voice again. The tone of the moment shifted toward understanding. Some people in the crowd quietly relaxed their shoulders. Phones slowly lowered as tension faded. A guide named Sarah approached carefully from the side. She waited for a clear signal before speaking. Ben gave her a small nod. Sarah smiled politely and welcomed the group forward. She spoke about the history of the palace in a soft voice. Her calm words helped reset the mood. As the group began to walk, Trump followed without resistance. His steps were slower now and more observant. He listened as Sarah spoke about kings and ceremonies. The story of tradition filled the space between the stones. Trump glanced back once toward the guard line. Tom remained still as ever. The crowd began to move with the group. People whispered about what they had just seen. Some said the guard showed strong discipline. Others said the officer handled the moment well. Many agreed the situation stayed respectful. Alex felt a quiet pride rise inside him. He believed moments like this defined their role. Not by force or noise but by consistency. He believed the guard line represented stability. That stability did not change based on who visited. Tom felt the same steady calm continue inside him. He thought briefly about his family back home. He knew they would be proud of his discipline. He also knew they would never hear him talk about it. His role was not to seek attention. His role was to serve quietly. As the group moved farther away, the yard grew quieter. Only the sound of footsteps and wind remained. A few late visitors asked each other what had happened. Those who witnessed it explained in simple terms. They said the guard followed rules without anger. They said respect was shown through calm behavior. A man named Paul spoke softly to his daughter. He said rules mattered, even for powerful people. The daughter nodded as if learning something important. She looked back at the guards with curiosity. She asked how they stayed so still. Paul smiled and said practice builds strength. Ben returned to his position near the officers. He exhaled slowly once he was out of focus. He felt satisfied with how the moment ended. He believed clarity prevented conflict. He believed respect grew when explanations were calm. Alex exchanged a quick glance with Ben. No words were spoken between them. Years of shared service made words unnecessary. They both understood the weight of their roles. Tom continued standing as time passed. Minutes felt like seconds to him. He focused on the line of the horizon. He listened to the rhythm of his breath. The earlier moment faded into routine. The palace yard slowly returned to normal. Tourists resumed taking photos of the guards. Children waved quietly from a distance. Some visitors tried to stand still like statues. Laughter returned softly to the air. Trump and his group reached another section of the palace. Sarah continued explaining the meaning of ceremonies. She spoke about salutes and when they were used. She explained that gestures held deep meaning here. Trump listened without interrupting. His expression appeared thoughtful as he walked. He asked a question about tradition. Sarah answered with care and clarity. The exchange stayed respectful and calm. Cameras captured a different tone now. Back in the yard, Tom felt the sun break through the clouds. A small warmth touched his face. He welcomed it without changing posture. He knew his shift would last a while longer. He was ready to remain steady until it ended. Alex scanned the crowd one more time. Everything felt settled again. No raised voices and no confusion remained. Only structure and routine filled the space. Ben glanced at the flags above once more. He felt proud of the institution he served. Moments like this reminded him why rules mattered. Rules created fairness without argument. As time moved on, the earlier tension became a story. Visitors would tell others about it later. They would describe calm strength rather than conflict. They would remember the guard who did not move. They would remember the officer who spoke with respect. Tom stood as the yard slowly emptied. The stones beneath him felt solid and unchanged. History surrounded him in silence. He felt connected to every guard before him. His duty remained clear and simple. The palace stood tall as the day continued. Tradition remained unshaken by the morning event. The guards stayed ready and disciplined. The rules held firm without needing force. The lesson lingered quietly in the cold air. The afternoon light slowly changed the color of the palace stones. Shadows grew longer across the wide yard. The earlier tension felt far away now. The guards continued their duty without change. Tom remained in position with steady focus. His body stayed strong and balanced. His mind stayed clear and calm. He did not replay the moment in his head. He treated it like any other part of duty. Alex stood at his post and observed the visitors. He noticed how people now looked at the guards differently. Their eyes showed curiosity and respect. Some visitors whispered about discipline and control. Others simply admired the stillness. A small group of students entered the yard. Their teacher spoke softly to them. She explained the meaning of service and tradition. The students listened with wide eyes. They watched the guards carefully. One student named Leo raised his hand quietly. He asked how long the guards could stand still. The teacher smiled and said it came from training. She said training shaped both body and mind. Leo nodded as if understanding something new. Tom noticed the students from the corner of his vision. He remembered being young and curious too. He once stood where they stood now. He once wondered how discipline felt. Now discipline felt natural to him. The wind moved softly through the yard. Flags waved gently above the walls. The sound added rhythm to the silence. The palace felt alive without noise. Ben walked through the officers' path quietly. He checked on positions and spacing. Everything looked orderly and calm. He felt satisfied with the flow of the day. He believed calm days were signs of good leadership. Ben paused briefly and observed Tom. He saw perfect posture and steady presence. He felt proud without showing it. He knew praise was rarely spoken aloud here. Service itself was the reward. Alex noticed Ben nearby and gave a subtle nod. Ben returned the nod with equal respect. No words passed between them. Their understanding was built over years. Trump and his group were still inside the palace halls. They moved through rooms filled with history. Guides spoke about ceremonies and symbols. Trump listened carefully and asked questions. His tone remained calm and thoughtful. Sarah explained how traditions were preserved. She spoke about balance and respect. She said tradition survived through consistency. Trump nodded and looked around the hall. He appeared reflective rather than demanding. Back outside, the yard returned to a steady flow. Tourists came and went quietly. Some waved gently toward the guards. Others stood still to take photos. The guards remained unmoved. Tom felt the temperature drop slightly. He adjusted his breathing without shifting posture. His focus stayed sharp and controlled. He reminded himself that time always passed. A bird landed briefly near the stone path. It looked around and then flew away. The small movement contrasted with the guard's stillness. The moment passed without notice. Alex scanned the area with trained awareness. He noticed no unusual behavior. Everything felt balanced and routine. He trusted the structure around him. Ben reviewed the schedule for the evening. He prepared for the next shift change. He believed smooth transitions were important. He planned quietly and efficiently. The sun moved lower toward the horizon. Golden light touched the palace walls. The yard looked warmer and softer. Visitors admired the view. Tom felt the warmth brush his face. He accepted it calmly. He did not smile or move. His focus remained on duty. A couple stopped near the barrier. They whispered about the earlier moment. They spoke about respect and limits. They seemed impressed by calm strength. Alex heard fragments of their words. He felt satisfied with how the day unfolded. He believed quiet moments taught strong lessons. Ben glanced at the flags again. They still waved steadily. They symbolized continuity and order. He felt connected to the past and future. As evening approached, the yard grew quieter. Fewer visitors remained. The atmosphere felt peaceful and settled. Tom stayed in position until the signal came. He waited with patience and discipline. He knew his role mattered even in silence. Alex prepared mentally for shift change. He reviewed procedures calmly. Routine brought confidence. Ben gave a final check across the yard. Everything was in place. The day had returned fully to order. The palace stood firm against the fading light. Tradition held steady without force. Respect filled the space quietly. The lesson of the day remained clear. The evening air slowly wrapped the palace yard in calm quiet. The sky turned soft shades of orange and gray. Lights along the stone paths began to glow gently. The long day moved toward its close. Tom finally received the silent signal to end his shift. He moved with careful precision for the first time in hours. His muscles relaxed as he stepped away from position. He felt tired but steady inside. Duty completed always brought quiet satisfaction. Alex joined him near the inner walkway. They exchanged a brief, respectful glance. No long conversation was needed. Both understood the weight of the day. They walked together toward the changing area. Their boots echoed softly on the stone floor. The palace behind them remained calm and proud. Visitors had mostly left by now. Inside the hall, Ben reviewed the final notes of the day. He confirmed that all events ended smoothly. He felt relief and quiet pride. Leadership was often invisible when done well. Ben thought about the moment from earlier. He felt glad that calm words guided the outcome. He believed patience protected dignity. He believed clarity prevented conflict. Trump prepared to leave the palace grounds. His visit ended without further tension. He walked toward the exit with his group. His expression appeared thoughtful and reserved. As he passed through the final gate, he looked back once. The palace stood tall in the fading light. The guards returned to their silent watch. The structure of tradition remained clear. Outside the palace walls, people talked quietly. Some shared the story of what they witnessed. They spoke about discipline and respect. They spoke about calm strength without force. A journalist noted the moment in simple terms. He described it as a lesson in boundaries. He focused on the dignity of tradition. The story spread without anger or drama. Tom changed out of his uniform slowly. He folded it carefully with practiced care. The weight of the coat felt lighter now. He felt proud without needing praise. Alex sat nearby and stretched his shoulders. He reflected on how small moments carried meaning. He believed service shaped character over time. He believed consistency earned trust. Ben joined them briefly before leaving. He thanked them quietly for their discipline. His words were short but meaningful. The guards acknowledged him with respect. Outside, the palace lights reflected on stone. The yard rested in peaceful silence. The day closed without disturbance. Tom stepped outside into the cool night air. He felt free from stiffness now. He breathed deeply and looked at the sky. Stars began to appear faintly. He thought about why he chose this role. He remembered wanting to serve something greater. That purpose still felt strong. The day had tested it gently. Alex walked beside him toward the exit gate. They spoke lightly about routine matters. They did not dwell on the earlier moment. They knew its meaning would last quietly. Ben watched from a distance as they left. He felt confident in the institution he served. He believed days like this strengthened its foundation. The palace remained still through the night. Its walls held centuries of stories. One more lesson had joined them. Power passed through many hands. Tradition stayed rooted in principle. Respect endured through calm action. The guards returned again the next day. The rules remained unchanged. The palace stood ready as always.